President Biden, in just the last hour, reacting to a major decision handed down today by the Supreme Court, which is calling into question the future of the Voting Rights Act and could embolden those Republicans pushing voter suppression measures all across the country. The conservative majority on the Supreme Court upholding two voting restrictions in the state of Arizona, one that requires officials to toss out ballots cast in the wrong precinct, and another that makes it a crime for most people to collect ballots for delivery to polling precincts, a practice that has become a target of the former president and his allies peddling the big lie. The New York Times reporting on the wider implications of the decision says this, quote, "The larger message of the ruling was that the Voting Rights Act of 1965, hobbled after the Supreme Court in 2013 effectively struck down its central provision, retains only limited power to combat voting restrictions said to disproportionately affect minority voters' access to the polls." In a scathing dissent, Justice Elena Kagan writes, quote, "If a single statute represents the best of America, it is the Voting Rights Act. It marries two great ideals, democracy and racial equality, and it dedicates our country to carrying them out. If a single statute reminds us of the worst in America, it is the Voting Rights Act, because it was and remains so necessary." What is tragic here is that the court has yet again rewritten in order to weaken a statute that stands as a monument to America's greatness and protects against its basest impulses. Joining us now is Ari Berman, Mother Jones senior reporter and author of the book, Give Us the Ballot, and Kim Atkins-Storr, senior opinion writer for the Boston Globe and an MSNBC contributor. Ari, I'm such a fan of your reporting, and you have done such extraordinary reporting on this story. First, your reaction to the Supreme Court decision today.
Thank you so much, Nicole. It's a dark day for the Voting Rights Act, and it's a dark day for democracy. The Supreme Court has essentially eviscerated what is left of the Voting Rights Act, leaving it severely weakened. And remember, Nicole, they already gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013 and ruled that those states with the longest histories of discrimination, like Georgia and Texas, don't have to approve their voting changes with the federal government. But then they said in that decision, there's another part of the Voting Rights Act that's left that can be used to combat discriminatory voting measures. Well, now they have essentially gutted that part of the Voting Rights Act as well. So they have taken the twin pillars of the Voting Rights Act and they've weakened both, leaving very little protections in place to challenge all of the voter suppression laws that we're seeing all across the country today.
You know, Ari, your reporting, I think, has sounded the right alarm, and I wonder if you think the Democratic Party is acting urgently enough. I mean, I think almost 30 laws have already been passed. They've targeted the states that President Biden won by the closest margin, and absent federal legislation, which would at this point require filibuster reform, that's it. This is the new, field on which elections will be waged, and they strategically and openly and as a mission statement disenfranchise Democratic-leaning voters.
Yeah, well, I think that Democrats need to be as aggressive in combating voter suppression as Republicans are in doing voter suppression. And we're seeing a lot of asymmetry between the parties because Republicans are using all the levers of power they have to make it harder to vote, namely their control of the states and their control of the courts. And they're doing it unilaterally, using the partisan majorities they have to enshrine anti-democratic power. Democrats, meanwhile, are saying we can only do it if Republicans join us. Meanwhile, Republicans are doing everything they can to freeze Democrats out of the process. So Democrats have to realize this is a make or break moment for democracy. We're in a 1965 moment right now where we need to strengthen the Voting Rights Act and pass new protections for voting rights. And if Democrats don't do it soon, if they don't do it in the next 2 years, they're likely not going to get another chance to do it for a very long time. So there needs to be an incredible sense of urgency here. And I think between all of the new voter suppression laws in the states and now the court's decision, the Democrats are realizing what the cost of inaction will be, that if they don't act to stop these voter suppression efforts, they're only going to get worse and worse, and the court is going to give them a green light.